Haarlem, the Netherlands, 1943, a public park, a wooden bench. Midday, a woman sits alone, reading. She believes she is safe. Footsteps approach. A teenage girl, braided pigtails, a thin coat, no threat in her posture. She looks 12, maybe younger, the kind of child adults do not fear. The girl stops in front of the bench. She asks a simple question. "What's your name?" The woman answers. The girl reaches into her coat. She draws a pistol. She looks the woman in the eyes and fires once. The woman falls sideways onto the bench, dead. The girl does not run. She does not scream. She turns, walks to her bicycle, mounts it calmly, and rides away into the street traffic. Her name is Freddy Oversteegen. She is 16 years old. The woman she killed was Dutch, not German, a collaborator. She had compiled a list, names, addresses, entire families, every Jewish household in the region. She was preparing to hand it over to the Nazis. That list would have meant deportation, and deportation meant death. By pulling the trigger, Freddy erased hundreds of names before they could be spoken aloud. By the end of the war, she and her sister would assassinate dozens of Nazis and collaborators. The exact number was never recorded. When asked later how many people she had killed, Freddy always gave the same answer. One should not ask a soldier any of that. This is not a story about heroes carved in stone. It is a story about two teenage girls who used smiles as weapons, who lured armed men into forests and did not let them walk back out. Girls who learned to fire guns underground, in the dark, beneath sacks of potatoes. Girls who refused to kill children, even the children of their enemies. Girls who fought monsters without becoming them. Freddy Oversteegen was born in 1925, just outside Haarlem. Her childhood had little stability and no luxury. The family lived on a houseboat. Money was always short. Her father drifted in and out of their lives, eventually leaving for good. As the boat pulled away, he sang a French farewell song from the bow. Freddy would see him only rarely after that. Her mother, Treintje, called Trien, was a committed communist. Not in theory, but in practice. She believed that when you see injustice, you act. Looking away was its own kind of crime. After the divorce, Trien moved Freddy and her older sister, Truus, into a cramped apartment in Haarlem. They slept on straw mattresses. They owned almost nothing, but the door was never closed. Jewish refugees fleeing Germany, political fugitives hunted by the Nazis, people whose names the girls sometimes never learned. Freddy and Truus grew up sharing their beds with strangers in hiding. They made handmade dolls for children suffering in the Spanish Civil War. They learned, early and without ceremony, that comfort was negotiable, but responsibility was not. Their mother taught them one rule. If you help someone, she said, you must be willing to sacrifice something of yourself. On May 10, 1940, Nazi Germany invaded the Netherlands. The Dutch army held for 5 days. Then it collapsed. Freddy was 14. Truus was 16. Occupation followed immediately. German soldiers filled the streets. Nazi flags hung from buildings. New laws appeared overnight. New fears settled into daily life. Years later, Freddy would describe the sound she remembered most. Rifle butts smashing against doors, the echo traveling through entire neighborhoods, the shouting, always the shouting, people being dragged from their homes. It was very frightening, she said. That fear would not stop her. The Oversteegen family did not hide. They acted. Freddy and Truus joined their mother in small, illegal defiance. They distributed underground newspapers, anti-Nazi pamphlets, messages printed at night and read in secret. After dark,
The girls slipped through the streets with paste and paper, covering German propaganda posters with their own words.
The Netherlands must be free. Do not go to Germany. For every Dutch man sent to work in Germany, a German soldier goes to the front. Then they rode away on their bicycles, hearts racing, knowing that if they were caught, they would be shot. They were never caught. Two young girls on bicycles drew no attention. No one searched them, no one suspected them. But the resistance noticed. In 1941, a man knocked on their door. His name was Frans van der Wiel. He was a commander in the Haarlem resistance network. He had heard about the apartment with the open door, the communist mother, the daughters moving messages through the city. He spoke first to Trien. Can your daughters join the resistance? Freddy was 14. Truus was 16. Their mother said yes. The girls said yes. Van der Wiel was not convinced. He needed to know whether they would break, whether fear would loosen their tongues, whether they could be trusted with other people's lives. A few days later he returned. This time he burst through the apartment door dressed as a Gestapo officer. He waved a pistol. He shouted in German. He demanded to know where a Jewish man was hiding. Freddy and Truus believed it was real. They did not hesitate. They did not bargain. They did not give up a single name. They fought back, kicking, striking, screaming, attacking the man they believed was a Nazi officer, refusing to betray anyone, even if it meant their own deaths. Van der Wiel stopped the act. He lowered the weapon. He told them the truth. They had passed. Then he told them what joining the resistance would mean. They would learn sabotage, how to damage bridges, how to disrupt railway lines. He paused, and he said, "You will learn to shoot Nazis." Truus looked at her younger sister. Freddy smiled. "Well," she said, "that's something I've never done before." Before they left, their mother gave them one instruction. It was not tactical. It was not political. Always stay human. The Oversteegen sisters were taken underground, a potato shed, low ceiling. Packed earth walls, the smell of rot and damp soil. There, beneath the ground, they learned to handle a weapon, how to stand, how to breathe, how to keep their hands steady, how to aim, how to wait, how to kill. Their first mission was not an execution. It was fire. Nazi supply warehouses had to burn, but they were guarded by SS soldiers, armed men, alert, dangerous. The plan was simple. Freddy and Truus would approach the guards openly. They would talk, laugh, ask questions, smile, flirt, stand close enough to be seen as harmless. While the guards were distracted, other resistance members slipped in from behind. Then the fires started. The warehouses burned clean and fast. Supplies meant for the occupation went up in smoke. The guards never suspected the two teenage girls who had been laughing with them minutes earlier. The resistance leadership took notice. These girls could go places men could not. They could stand where others would be searched. They could get close when no one else could. Their youth was not a weakness. Their innocence was a weapon. It was time to use it fully. Freddy's first assassination target was not German. It was a Dutch woman, a collaborator, a citizen working willingly with the occupiers. Intelligence confirmed she had compiled a list on names, addresses, entire families, every Jewish household in the region. She was preparing to hand it over. That list was a death sentence. Hundreds of people, men, women, children, entire families would be rounded up, deported, erased. The resistance assigned Freddy the job. She rode her bicycle to a public park. She found the woman sitting alone on a bench. Freddy approached casually. Just a girl with braided hair. No tension, no rush. "What's your name?" she asked. The woman answered, Freddy confirmed the identity. She drew her pistol. She looked the woman in the eyes and fired. The body fell. Freddy mounted her bicycle and rode away. Later she would describe what it felt like. The first thing you want to do when you shoot someone, she said, is to pick them up. The instinct to help, even after you have killed. That impulse never left her, no matter how many times she pulled the trigger. Freddy and Truus refined their methods over time. Sometimes they worked alone, sometimes together. What mattered was speed, proximity, certainty. The forest. They went to bars and taverns where German officers gathered. One sister would enter alone. She would talk, laugh, touch an arm, lean close, make the officer feel chosen. Then she would ask the question, "Would you like to go for a walk in the woods?" The answer was always yes. They walked deeper into the forest, away from roads, away from witnesses, and there, among the trees, the other sister waited. One shot. The officer fell. The grave had already been dug. They left the body behind and rode away on their bicycles, two girls disappearing into the dark, carrying the weight of what they had done and what they would do again. The collaborators were often the most dangerous targets. Not Germans, but Dutch citizens. Men and women who knew the streets, the families, the hiding places, people who betrayed their neighbors for money, status, or protection. People who worked for the Gestapo and spoke Dutch while doing it. As the war went on, Freddy and Truus focused more and more on them. We were dealing with cancerous tumors in society, Truus explained later. You had to cut them out like a surgeon. You couldn't arrest them. You couldn't try them. There was no other solution. Then came an order that forced a reckoning. Resistance leadership identified a high-value target. Arthur Seyss-Inquart, the Reich Commissioner of the Netherlands, one of the most powerful Nazis in the country. The proposed mission was clear. Kidnap his children, use them as leverage to force the release of imprisoned resistance members. If he refused, kill the children. Freddy, Truus, and Hanny refused immediately, without debate. "We are not Hitlerites," Freddy said. "Resistance fighters don't murder children. They had killed many people. They would kill again. But children, never." That was the line, between resistance and terror, between fighting evil and becoming it. They would not cross it. Not every killing came from an order. One afternoon, Truus was cycling through the city when she saw something she would never forget. A Dutch SS man stood in the street, a Dutchman in Nazi uniform. He had seized an infant from its family. The father was there, the baby's sister, both screaming, helpless. The soldier lifted the child and smashed it against a wall. The baby died instantly. Truus stopped her bicycle. She drew her pistol. She shot the soldier where he stood. There was no plan, no assignment, no command. "That wasn't a mission," she said later, "but I don't regret it. Some things don't need orders." By 1944, Hanny Schaft was one of the most wanted people in the Netherlands. Her red hair had been seen too often. Witnesses described it again and again. The rumors spread. The Nazis issued notices. Find the girl with the red hair. Hanny dyed it black. She wore glasses. She altered her appearance as much as she could. She did not stop fighting. In June 1944, Hanny and another resistance fighter, Jan Boonkamp, were sent to kill a Dutch collaborator named Willem Ragut. They found him. Boonkamp fired first. Ragut was hit, but not killed. In the confusion, Boonkamp was shot in the stomach. Hanny escaped. Boonkamp did not. He was taken to a hospital, dying, interrogated by the Nazis. He said nothing. Then they tried a different tactic. An officer pretended to be resistance, told Bonekamp he was a friend, that he wanted to help. Delirious from blood loss and medication, Bonekamp believed him. He gave up Honey's address. He died shortly afterward. The Nazis raided her parents' home. They arrested her mother and father. They sent them to a concentration camp. Hanny vanished. She went into hiding, cut off from the fight. If she were captured now, everyone connected to her would die. For months, she stayed underground. But the war was closing in, and hiding could not last forever. March 21st, 1945, the war was almost over. Allied forces were advancing from every direction. Liberation was measured in weeks. Hanny was cycling through Haarlem with an illegal communist newspaper in her bag and a pistol hidden on her body. She was stopped at a Nazi checkpoint. They searched her. They found everything. She was arrested and taken to a prison in Amsterdam. For weeks, she was interrogated, tortured, isolated, kept alone with the questions, the beatings, the waiting. The Nazis knew they had caught someone important. They needed proof. Then they noticed it. Her hair was dyed black, but the roots were growing in red. They had found the girl with the red hair. Hanny admitted to her assassinations. She acknowledged what she had done. She did not deny the killings, but she gave up nothing else. Not one name, not one address, not one safe house, not Freddy, not Truus, no one. She protected her friends until the end. April 17th, 1945, 18 days before the Netherlands would be liberated. The war was effectively over. Everyone knew it. There was even an understanding, an informal agreement to halt executions. It was ignored. The Nazi officer in charge, Willy Lages, wanted Hanny Schaft dead. 2 Dutch collaborators were assigned as executioners, men betraying their own country in its final days. They took Hanny to the sand dunes at Overveen, the same dunes where hundreds of resistance fighters had already been killed and buried. One of them raised his pistol and fired. The bullet grazed her head. It wounded her, but it did not kill her. Hanny looked at him and said calmly, "I shoot better than you." The other executioner raised his submachine gun and fired. Hanny Schaft died in the dunes. She was 24 years old. They buried her in a shallow grave, so shallow that strands of her red hair remained visible above the sand. The Netherlands was liberated on May 5th, 1945, 18 days after Hanny died. After the war, 422 bodies were recovered from the Overveen dunes, 421 men, and 1 woman, Hanny Schaft. She was given a state funeral. Queen Wilhelmina called her the symbol of the resistance. Freddy and Truus received nothing. For decades, the Dutch government ignored them. The reason was simple. They were communists. During the Cold War, anyone with communist ties was sidelined, treated with suspicion, quietly erased from public memory. The sisters who had risked their lives for their country were treated as liabilities. Truus survived by creating art. She became a sculptor. She built memorials to the resistance. She wrote. She spoke publicly about what they had done. Freddy chose silence. "I coped by getting married and having babies," she said. She married Jan Decker. She had 3 children. She tried to build a normal life. The past followed her anyway. She suffered from insomnia, nightmares that arrived without warning. Every year on May 4th, Remembrance Day in the Netherlands, she woke with dread already in her chest. When people asked how many people she had killed, she gave the same answer every time. One should not ask a soldier any of that. She never said the number. Neither did Truus. Some things are carried alone. For almost 70 years, Freddy and Truus waited. Then, in 2014, the silence finally broke. The Dutch Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, invited them to a formal ceremony. There, he awarded them the Mobilization War Cross, a military decoration for service during the Second World War. Freddy was 89 years old. Truus was 91. Freddy's son would later say it was the happiest day of his mother's life. After 69 years, someone finally said thank you. Streets in Haarlem were named after the sisters. Their story appeared in books and documentaries. The country, at last, acknowledged what it had long avoided. But for most of their lives, they had lived in silence, unrecognized, unhonored. Two teenage girls who had killed Nazis and collaborators, forgotten by the country they helped save. Freddy Oversteegen died on June 18, 2016. She was 92 years old. Freddy Oversteegen died on September 5, 2018, one day before her 93rd birthday. Throughout her life, Freddy visited Hannie Schaft's grave. She brought red roses. She left them quietly, for the friend who did not live to see liberation. When asked what advice she would give future generations, Truus gave the same answer her mother once gave her. When you have to make a decision, she said, it must be the right one, and you must always remain human. Those words had been spoken decades earlier, before two girls ever touched a weapon. Always stay human. Freddy and Truus killed people. They shot men in forests and on street corners. They watched the life leave their enemies' eyes. And they cried afterward. They refused to murder children. They carried the weight of every decision for the rest of their lives. The Nazis killed millions, systematically, industrially, without remorse, and in doing so, surrendered their humanity entirely. That is the difference. During the war, roughly 90% of the Dutch population tried to live as normally as possible under occupation. About 5% collaborated. About 5% joined the resistance. Of that 5%, only a handful were women, and fewer still killed with their own hands. Freddy Oversteegen was one of them. A 14-year-old girl with braided pigtails and a pistol hidden in a bicycle basket. She was not a hero from a movie. There was no music swelling in the background, no slow motion, no triumphant ending. Just a teenage girl who decided that some things are worth killing for, and some things are worth dying for. Freddy, Truus, and Hannie are believed to have killed dozens of Nazis and Dutch collaborators. Some estimates place the number above 100. Freddy lived into her 90s. She never told anyone how many she killed, and she never apologized.